Hello, and welcome back to Midnight Grappler Animals. Today, we're taking a different turn. With me, I have my fellow compradors, Keigen, Lan. How are you guys today?
Take up your weapons.
That's the first time I've ever been referred to that way.
Yeah, I was trying to subvert some expectations, and I'm Salt. So you probably know one of us if you're listening to this show before. We are doing something a little different today. We are covering a documentary. This movie is called...
you might even say.
Yeah.
Actually, wait,
That's
that
good.
just sounds like you're doing a documentary about Uganda. Never mind.
Yeah, it doesn't work so well, actually. The movie is called Red Army PFLP, Declaration of World War, from 1971, directed by Masao Adachi and Koji Wakamatsu. What a film. One of the communist films of all time. There is so much to get into, but first, Keigen, initial impressions.
This movie is insane. It's a propaganda piece in the craziest way ever. It certainly fits the definition of a movie, and it's a beautiful film on some places. It's the juxtaposition of words and pictures are there. Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy thing that exists, I think.
Did you watch it by yourself or with anyone?
Yeah, I watched it on my iPad actually, which is not typical for me. I don't like watching things on my little screens, but I was like, this is just the easiest way. And I was just sat on the couch and watched a terrorist propaganda film.
Cool. Lan, what was your first impression?
See, I'm familiar with Japanese leftist movements. So, going into this, I was like, my main thing was, okay, so when did this documentary come out? So then I looked at exactly when this documentary came out, and suddenly it's a good documentary, don't get me wrong. It's made by two people that were very much part of the Japanese New Wave, and you can see that in a lot of the filmography and of these guys, but also like the cinematography of this documentary. But it's everything around it, we'll get into it later, but it came out at a really funny time in terms of the history of Japanese leftism. But yeah, it's
a lot before and after this, like you were saying. Yeah, let's start with the film itself, and then we can go into not only all the analysis, but all the prologue and epilogue and all the characters behind it. The film is fairly straightforward. It's a literal call to arms. It repeats the phrase quite often that armed struggle is propaganda. That's revolution. That's how you get the goods. We open with the hijacking of a commercial airline flight in Japan. They did a really sick tagging job on the side of the plane.
Yeah.
They got the whole body of the plane. It says down with imperialism and Zionism.
It's down with imperialism, Zionism, and Israel.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. They wrote it in English, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. They knew what they were doing.
A lot of the ensuing plot or imagery is, plot and imagery are a little bit different, but we get a lot of shots of driving around Japan to start, and they're explaining their Marxist vision for a world. Now, who they is was a little unclear to me, because the film purposely separates the voices from the personas a lot of the time, but it's presumably someone in one of these Japanese leftist factions.
So, some history here. The director Adachi was a member of the JRA, the Japanese Red Army. So that plus the very brief mention of the URA in the beginning, I think it's safe to assume that this was made with the intention of galvanizing JRA members specifically. So I think the bent here is towards the JRA. Because by this point, the Red Army faction was on its way out.
Yeah, and that's part of what makes the film so, I don't want to say inscrutable, because it is accessible, but you definitely feel separated, right? And it is, like Land keeps alluding to, it is so a product of its time and place.
Yeah, it feels a little bit illegible in places, like not and again, like you're dancing around like saying it's that, and it because it's not, it's like I could tell what this is communicating, I could tell what this is doing as a piece of art, but like as a piece of history, it's a little less clear, a little less direct.
Yeah. Well, like, there is a lot of easily accessible information about the hijacking, and the plane they hijack, they just refer to as the hijacking over and over, and they don't even talk about a lot of the more bombastic parts of it, which again fits in the film's aesthetic. When the film does arrive in Palestine and we start getting interviews with international communists, you hear from at least one of them, like, I'm not a hero. Don't call me a hero. I am doing my job. Like, they mean that in the most grounded sense possible. And that is really the majority of the film once it shifts over to Palestine. You have international communist members, definitely some French, maybe Russian, might be an American in there, and at least one or two Japanese people. They're all talking about the reality of training and assisting these I was going to say Palestinian resistance fighters, but the Palestinian resistance fighters are also in their own factions as well. The film doesn't allude to that so much. We see a lot of their training. There's a cool part where they have like a mat rolled out, and the young fighters are like practicing like stabbing and jumping. I thought that was really sick.
One thing I actually really like about this movie is, like, there's a lot of moments where there's no dialogue, no narration, and it's just us, like, as observers in the daily lives of not only these fighters, but also just, like, Palestine as it was, or even not just Palestine, but, like, Lebanon, because a lot of this takes place in Lebanon as they're preparing for, again, future activities. And, yeah, like, it's quaint, I'd say, just being able to observe, because I like, when it comes to documentaries, I always find it interesting when it allows itself to step back a bit and sort of like let it be a historical record, right? Like, when we think about like what documentaries are in terms of history, we don't really think about like the specifics, like what are the mundanities of being a freedom fighter, right? Like what is the average day like? And I think the documentary does a pretty good job of just like showcasing those quieter moments as well.
Yeah, I agree. You see like a lot of civilians, just like a lot of normal people in Palestine, like going about their business, like some countryside, some streets. I mean, it looks really beautiful. And we cut between that and the various members of the PFLP, which, if anyone's not familiar, PFLP stands for Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. I alluded to some of the physical training. We also see them reading their Maoist propaganda. We see them we see them loading guns. There's also, what's crucial is these interviews with some of the members themselves, and they say, yeah, come help us, come fight with us. And that's pretty inspiring. Yeah,
there's a call from one of the fighters near the end that like calls for unity across the globe. And like, again, there's a lot of optimism that you see from the fighters themselves that are being interviewed for this. And oh man, it's one of those things where there's like a situational irony to it, right? Because again, this is meant to be like a propaganda film for Japanese members of the JRA, but also the URA. Like I'd assume that this film would have also gone out to the URA, and also again remaining splinters of the Red Army faction. So yeah, like again, the situational irony of like this optimism, this like call to arms, and then like seeing where that went, not just like within the next few years, but even just the next few months. it's like equal parts funny, but not like haha funny, but also like kind of horrific as well. Just again, we're like 54 years down the line, just to see how like history has unfolded since then.
Right. Watching this movie that the situation does not improve for Palestine. You know that in Japan, the leftist movement essentially folds in on itself. And you know that international leftist politics are not in a great place after this, not only in the Middle East and Asia, but especially in South America and the United States, right?
Yeah. Well, and this was also taking place in the middle of the Vietnam War, too, right? Because there's a lot of points in this movie where they talk about the Vietnam War, they talk about Ho Chi Minh, they talk about the struggle of the South Vietnamese people, right? So I guess that's like one of the brighter moments, one would say, again, depending on your perspective on things, where it's like, well, that side of it at least turned out to not be as much of a, again, in the case of Japan, an implosion as the other ones were.
Yeah. I think, very early on, right, it talks about the U.S. is failing to convince people that the war is right. And I think that's another part of this existing at all and still being available is this sort of thing where it's like it was a flash in the pan moment where the sympathizer, right? Like leftism as a discussion in that time period makes so much sense.
Yeah, because
it was like we can win. This is attainable. We can become a large enough group to do something meaningful. And one of the things I was thinking about while the world, the fact that yes, this was aiming at Japanese people in particular in the Red Army and everything like that. That all makes sense. But I feel like it's a very common leftist aim is to aim too big, aim too high. We're gonna liberate the world, and I don't know if historically that's the thing that is just they're just saying that, right? They just we just want people to feel that way. This is just a tool of propaganda to get people involved. Or if it's that is actually a flaw in the system that you can't, the resources aren't there. We need to focus in, smaller areas. But that's a whole problem in just US politics alone. The leftists don't understand organizing to change the country as a whole, really, or they haven't been able to in the last 50 years. And so, the world Revolutionary War is a sick term. Holy crap, that's incredible. Let's go. But it's so unattainable. And it also just puts a veil on the whole thing. Just damn.
Well, it's also a tool of galvanizing. Or sorry, go ahead, Salt.
No, you're good, Lane. Keep going.
Yeah, it's a tool of galvanization, though, right? I think and again, part of the reason why this works in the context of the history of it is the Red Army faction had splintered off into two groups, the JRA and the URA, the United Red Army and the Japanese Red Army. One being focused on international and moving internationally, whereas the other one focused more locally. And that's the cause and the root of that splintering, right, in the Red Army faction. So, in terms of, again, galvanization, it's showcasing that there is a reason for why the JRA should be moving outside of Japan, right? If this is geared towards the again, calling to arms for the JRA, it's giving them a reason to want to move outwards to, again, help in not only Palestine, but also the other regions in the Middle East, as well as even in Vietnam, right? Because again, it was so fresh at that point, right? I think for a lot of members within the JRA, it's also the element of did we make the right move? Did we choose the right side? Right? So, that historical context, I think, adds to why this documentary takes the angle it does. But yeah, you're right. In terms of attainability, it's very lofty.
Yeah. The word I was going to use to respond to what Keigen was saying was self-evident. Like a lot of this movie is relying upon a self-evident rhetoric, both in its text and its imagery. There's nothing needs to be justified. Like who's committing so much evil in this world. Even beyond evil, the world needs this leftist revolution if we're all going to make it, right? Like the film presumes you already believe that, and that's refreshing in a way, even if it makes it feel a bit, again, for lack of a better term, inscrutable in places.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also, just before we have a chance to like move past it, you talked about like basically the film's basically two monologues and then like some other statements on either side of those monologues that are more general, right? And the first of those, and I guess they're interviews, we don't really hear the questions at all. We just hear them talking on the subject. The first one, the woman talking about being a hero. I think this is like the part where you see so much leftism, I think, like modern leftism, right? Especially the stuff like I think the poetic expression of like, she's talking about heroism so much. You added that I do not see myself as a hero. To hear someone speak to me in that way, I feel very happy. But in any case, we do not talk about ourselves as individuals. I like to insist that we dedicate ourselves to revolution and that our lives are for revolution, not for being seen as heroes. And like, that's cool, right? That's a very cool thing to say. That's like the correct thing to say. And like, that's the revolutionary thing too, right? That's the communist perception.
Yeah.
But also like, that's kind of the common person's problem with leftism, like it's self-evident, it's self-assured, it's very like, it's Matt Murdock kind of, like it's I am him, it's
I have are you done? Sorry.
Yeah, you interrupt. Go for it.
So I have two responses to that. Like one is that I felt very similar. Like watching this, I was, I really sympathized with these people. A lot of the cause I find common ground with, but a lot of it too, you're like, okay, how much of this is going to put people off who could potentially be sympathetic to you, right? Like, and you have to bear in mind how many people involved in leftist causes throughout the world are not educated, and I hate how elitist that sounds, right?
Yeah.
But it does diminish the effectiveness of the rhetoric in places. So yeah, I absolutely see where you're coming from. The other part I want to address here is we keep saying that woman, and I didn't realize who she was, although I had seen her face before and her name. The woman giving that interview is Layla Khaled. Are either of you familiar with her?
Yeah, I am.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Layla Khaled had done hijacking in 1969. And so I think that plane hijacking inspired the plane hijacking in this film. And she's a huge personality on the world stage for leftist Palestinian causes. She's a really long Wikipedia. There's a bunch of other movies about her. So yeah, I going forward, I definitely want to learn more about Layla Khaled.
Yeah, no, that's sick. And like, again, it's this thing of rhetoric. Right, she lives the rhetoric. So it's like, I'm not criticizing that part of it either. And this is also a movie, right? It's an hour-long propaganda film. And so like, you only have so much. But I also like the whole time watching it and after was thinking of the quote last year, the year before, the only hero to Americans is SpongeBob. And so like, you guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
there's a few variations on it.
Yeah,
that was Soleimani that said that,
quote.
right?
Yeah.
I think Chavez said the only American hero is Spider-Man, but it's all the same thing.
Yeah. I think concept. SpongeBob is meaner, and it's like the newer version of it. So. And like that also interacts with that too, right? Ultimately, I'm listening to like a pamphlet length couple of monologues about somebody's actual life and beliefs and reacting to them. So like all that with all that in mind as well. it's also just like the sort of thing where different cultures are going to interact with this stuff differently. And yeah, I mean, very cool, very hard line. Just also one of those things that I immediately have to unwind all of this out of my brain.
Yeah, the idea of like, am I criticizing this or not is also something to unpack, because a lot of the people featured in this film would go on to criticize their own strategies, right? Like, so it is all coming from this place of like, how do we make this work? You know, how do we make a leftist struggle effectively work? How do we do this without shooting our own dicks off? Like, it is a very difficult question.
Yeah.
Lan, I think this is a good time to start to get into some of the Japanese political background, some of the figures and events involved.
So let's do the whole history, because I think to understand like where this film came from, like you got to understand like what the history of Japanese leftism, and specifically student-led Japanese leftism, was. So we'll go back to 1948, because that's when the Zengakuren is formed. So that was brought together by the JCP, the Japanese Communist Party, and so this was very post-war. I think students that are still, fighting against the remains of Japan's fascist, Nazi infrastructure, right? So you have the Zengakuren that's formed in 1948. A lot of their struggles are focused on the anti-American presence, as well as denuclearization. So you have things like the Bloody May Day protests, as well as the Sunagawa struggle. And so this is the first, the first rung, because from here you have the first splinter, which is the Japan Communist League, aka the Bund. This was formed in, I believe, 1958. So we're at like one level splinter. So in 1959 to 1960, we have the Anpo protests, which I believe we actually brought up in our Godzilla -1 episode, because that's a huge thing in regards to not only the anti-American presence in Japan, but also the history of Japanese leftism, because the JCL was a huge proponent of the Anpo protests, which led to the resignation of former war criminal and grandfather of war crime denier Shinzo Abe, Nobusuke Kishi. So that happened in 1960. And then from there, you also have them, again, continuing their work in the 1960s, but then you get the next splinter, which is the Red Army faction, which splinters off in 1968 and is meant to be a more militant faction of the JCL. So now we're at like 2 layers of splinters. And then in March 1970, we have the hijacking that's mentioned at the beginning of this film, which is the Yodogo hijacking. So in this case, the leader of the Red Army faction, Takaya Shiomi, was arrested before he could even partake in it, but the hijacking went as planned, landed in North Korea, and you know the rest. It's in the film itself. So in Shiomi's absence, Tsuneo Mori takes lead of the Red Army faction, and that leads to further schisms. And so in mid to late 1971, the Red Army faction schisms into 2 more factions. So now we're at a splinter of a splinter of a splinter. Yeah, wait, hold on. So the JRA and the URA, which splinter off from the Red Army faction, which is a splinter of the JCL, which is a splinter of Zengakuren. So now we're at like 4 layers of splintering, I think. So the difference is that JRA wants to take the international approach, while URA wants to keep everything local and, again, dismantle the overarching police presence and just what they perceive, well, not just perceive, but what was a highly militarized police state in Japan. But the rift was also funny because both approaches were following what they believe to be Takaya Shiomi's legacy, we'll say. Because Takaya Shiomi did talk about moving outwards while also keeping it local to take down the monarchy, right? So in this case, you have Tsuyoshi Okudaira and Fusaku Shigenobu who are leading the JRA. Okudaira and Shigenobu would then go over to Lebanon to partake in what would happen later on, which I'll get to. And then you have Tsuneo Mori as well as Hiroko Nagata, who led the URA. So this is like, we'll say July to September of 1971. And so in September 14th of 1971, the URA puts out their own declaration, which is covered very briefly in this documentary, which is crazy because this documentary comes out like 5 days after that declaration.
Ballers.
So
damn.
Like, it's so crazy. Like a week after that declaration even happened, this documentary comes out. So yeah, we're at September of 1971 now. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the United Red Army, but it was a failure, is the best way I could put it. Because in February of 1972, the URA did what it's famously known for, which is a member purge. So they holed up in a chalet in a mountain, and they purged members who they believed weren't loyal to the cause. So I believe it was like 12 members that were left out in the cold to die. That turned into a whole like hostage situation / police confrontation. This is now known as the Asama Sanso incident, which is honestly something we should cover in another episode, because that is
there is
insane.
So much historical context around all of this.
So the producer of this film, Koji Wakamatsu, actually made a film about the Asama Sanso incident. It's crazy. Like if you read the history of the URA, as brief as it is like cult-like, like the whole, like everything with the purging and everything. So that happens in February of 1972. So that's September, October, November, December, January, February.
Didn't even make it through the
6
winter.
months. 6 months after they're forming. And then in 1972 May, we have the Lod Airport massacre, which was carried out by the JRA. So in this massacre, Tsuyoshi Okudaira, who I mentioned as one of the leaders of the JRA, ends up dying. And yeah, it's pretty much where the things end-ish for the JRA. Like the JRA still continues to do more plane hijackings and operate until I believe 2001. But that is like the big turning point for the JRA. And that's pretty much it. Like if we want to go brief with it, like that's
yeah.
I
want to add 2 notes along the way for this. One is that we talked about how the original organizer, Takaya Shiomi, was arrested. Now, Shiomi would later be tried for his connections to these illegal leftist causes, but he was originally arrested that day because he resembled a different guy, like a thief that the
just
cops
a regular
were looking for.
thief. Like it almost feels like the climax to like a Steven Soderbergh movie, right?
Yeah.
Where like the heist is going, everything's going as planned, but then the one member of the heist gets caught up because
like the opposite of Julia Roberts stuff.
Yeah.
In Ocean's.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is Shiomi or someone else, but I was reading what happened to a lot of these members, and another one of the key members would go on to continue in politics and like team up with like Japanese far right national causes. And, I want to mention that to say, like, a lot of these people involved are perfectly fallible individuals, like they made all kinds of mistakes before, during, and after this. Mm-hmm. One more note is there is a comics connection here.
Oh, yes. About specifically in the March 1970 hijacking.
Yeah, during that hijacking, one of the hijackers, Tamiya, got up, drew his katana, and yells, "We are Ashita no Joe!"
Ashita no Joe, now available from Kodansha Comics in English as of December of last year. Go pick up a copy if you can. I'm kidding. It's crazy. Ashita no Joe, I think, was like 3 years into publication at this point, right? Because it started in 1968, I believe. So, like, it's so crazy to talk about the manga du jour as like, because, okay, to be fair, Ashita no Joe, it is meant to be like, it is meant to be like the working class comic. Like the whole thing was the whole manga. It's not just about boxing. It's also about like the working class struggle. But it's also really funny to think about, like, again, if someone from Al Qaeda in 19 on 9/11 was like, this is for Goku.
I'm sure it wasn't for
Rasengan.
Yeah, like
like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, Goku would be okay. Like, going Super Saiyan is like crazy, wild, but like, okay, there's cultural penetration there, a lot of people. But man, this is incredible. What heroes?
Yeah. So actually, on the note of the director here, because I mentioned that this movie came out within just like a week of the URA making its declaration. The director Masao Adachi would go on to make a documentary about the assassination of Shinzo Abe like 3 months after it happened.
That's so cool. That's the artistic equivalent of pissing on his grave.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But
were you familiar with either one of these filmmakers? Were you familiar with Adachi or Koji Wakamatsu?
Well, Wakamatsu I was familiar with because of the URA film, but I'm also familiar with him because he produced Nagisa Oshima's In the Realm of the Senses.
I've seen that.
I'm sure you have, Salt.
I watched it in my porn class in college.
Oh, yes. Wakamatsu was mainly known for pink films, but he was like a pretty prominent figure in the new wave movement.
Does Keigen know what a pink film is?
You know what? Contextually, I figured it out, but I'm also like, we don't need so many words for this. It's a sexual film, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
sexual film.
It's
sexual
a film with, like, why we gotta have so many
words? It's a
words?
film sexual style.
Yeah. Listen, it's not just sexual style. In the Realm of the Senses had unsimulated sex in it. But yeah, that's like the main thing that people, aka perverts, would know Wakamatsu for. But he also made other films like Caterpillar, which I believe came out in 2010, 2011, which like a lot of his films dealt with the dark side of Japanese history, like the power dynamic between again, evil men. Like, there's no easy way to put it, like evil and the power dynamic between men and women. But yeah, he got hit by a car in 2012, and Wakamatsu did, and it's possible that it might have been a hit because he was working on a project about the Japanese nuclear lobby. So I'm not saying that it happened, or I'm not saying it was a coordinated hit, but I'm saying there's a non-zero chance that it could have been a coordinated hit.
Right.
Adachi's still alive, on the other hand.
I have a quote from Wakamatsu I want to read. And I don't know. I think this quote was from the sick. No, actually, this quote, I don't have a time for it, but it is from an interview. But excuse me. In this interview, Wakamatsu is asked about the relationship between politics in his films and his political life. And he says, "The reason my films are political is that I haven't made the decision to go and start throwing grenades. Through cinema, I'm trying, despite everything, to be politically active by showing the spectator that the government is putting a gun to his heads."
That's so sick.
I really like that quote because, we're a lot of what we talk about on this podcast is art and politics and the intersection between the two. And I I find that really pertinent to this discussion.
Yeah, like Wakamatsu's career is always like it's interesting insofar as like being able to keep that leftist sentiment alive, because again, after the 70s, you really started to see a lot of that fade away. Like you never got anything as truly militant as things were in the early 70s. And you know, again, as the Overton window shifted, not just worldwide but also for Japan, like you never really think about like what the big leftist voices in Japan are, right? Well, as you know, like an American, you don't really think about countries outside of your own, but
they were pretty big. Okay, pretty big country. Got a lot of states. There's 50 of them.
Yeah,
I'm supposed to keep track of all you on top of the 50.
You got to keep track of all the leftist movements in all 50 states. Isn't there 51?
Well, there's probably only like 3 of them.
Oh wait, no, not yet.
No,
not yet.
That's you, buddy.
Not yet. But yeah, like Japanese leftism is such an interesting thing to look into, because even in the modern day, and it's like, what is the modern Japanese left? What does that look like? Especially in a country that's been ruled by the LDP's hegemony for like 70 years now. We only had like a very brief break in that in the 90s. But yeah, like for a country that's been ruled by this like cult associated far right government, you know, like what does leftism look like? And you know, hopefully we can find some more examples. Like there's a film by the guy who created The Emperor's Army, what's his name, Kazuo Hara. He put out a documentary called Reiwa Uprising, which is about a political party that found its roots at the turn of the monarchy in 2019. I believe it's called the Reiwa Shinsengumi. And yeah, like a lot of people don't think about it, but you know, like there are still leftist movements in Japan even to this day. It's just that, you know, you're not going to get plane hijackings the way you got in the early 70s. And maybe that's a good thing. Actually, I'm going to take the maybe out just for the sake of, you know, not getting any visits. It is a good thing that no one's hijacking any planes.
You know, I keep thinking about the time and the energy you keep alluding to, right? And like, I was so taken by Ishinomori's Kamen Rider manga, like how many left ideas were in that. And again, with the passage of time, like he was nowhere near as politically fiery as he was in that original manga, right?
Well,
like,
I mean, like
something really
that was coming out while this was happening, right? Like,
yeah, that's my point, right? It's crazy.
Right? Like, this documentary was coming out at a time when the Kamen Rider manga was being serialized. There's a non-zero chance that this came out within like a month of that issue where he drew Eisuke Sato getting beheaded coming out. Like everything around that time, like it was such like a huge time for not just like leftist movements, but like anti-government, anti-LDP sentiment.
Yeah.
But
one more note I have on. Oh, go ahead, Keigen.
No. Keigen?
Wow. No, that was all in.
Oh. One more note I want to make on the filmmaking technique as I was researching this movie further is there's an aesthetic philosophy I had never heard of before called, and I'm probably saying this wrong, but I believe it's pronounced Fukeiron. Have you heard this, Lan?
No, can you spell this out?
Yeah, it's Fukeiron.
I really want this to spell "fuck you, Lan" right now.
Yeah, it's spelled Fuklan.
Oh yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah.
But no, this was according to this movie museum, the Brooklyn Academy for Movies. I don't know. I'm on their website right now, but they did a screening of the film last year, and they said This is an exemplar of Japanese Fukeiron. The theory of invoking landscapes is a means to explain a place's social and political reality. And like that really helps contextualize why they were just driving around Japan and then driving around Palestine and Lebanon. Like when you see this bleak terrain, it's meant to motivate you to reshape your world.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't make that movie. That's their thought.
I mean, like, you know, the shots they take of Lebanon are like very beautiful. You know, like, you know, they are like unconventional landscapes to folks living in urban climates, we'll say. But you know, like it's again, there's a natural beauty, and even like even in the cities, right? Like there's a beauty to the landscapes. I don't know about the motivational factor though. Like
that was my misreading. I think it's more just to show you what.
Yeah, I think it's a good technique too, though, because like, I mean, it is a good technique because it forces you to stay in the narrative while not giving you anything new, really. You know. And
not make it about like, any individual.
Yeah,
too.
and like contextually, it's still contextualized within the thing. So it's still like, how does this relate to heroism that's going to be washing over you or whatever? How does this relate to revolution? How does it relate to collective movement? Things like that. And so it's like, I mean, I think manga does it all the time. I think of Wave Listen to Me a lot. They'll do like multiple pages of just like scenery, which is insane because that's like 1 million squares to draw. Like you're drawing buildings for days, but it's just a cool technique. Like I think it's a I love that technique. And here it was like beautiful just to look at, obviously, but also like very rhetorically useful, I think.
Maybe we should cover the Emperor's Naked Army marches on at some point.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, but I mean, if we want to
terrorist heroes, you know.
Yeah, you know, Kazuo Hara, star of Shin Godzilla, he directed that movie.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, arguably one of the funnier cameos in a Hideaki Anno movie. Yeah, do we have any final thoughts on this film?
It's mind-blowing. There's just so much to unpack. I think we barely scratched the surface, and we somehow made it mostly coherent.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also has to deal with the fact that like we have to step around a lot just for the sake of, you know, not getting any visits.
Yeah.
No, I also like, you know, for at least last year, I've been shouting about like, I want more terrorist heroes. I want more stories about terrorists as protagonists, terrorist protagonists. Right? And this, like, obviously it's not a narrative, it's not a movie, which makes it all way more complicated to figure out actual feelings about it. But like, that's what I want, you know? Because like looking at 20th Century Boys. 20th Century Boys is like a really good example of something that gets so close to what I want, right? Because spoilers for 20th Century Boys, not anything meaningful, but like at a certain point in the narrative, they are publicly terrorists. They're publicly traitors, parts of the main cast. And like, they don't actually do anything mean though. Like, at no point as a viewer do you feel squeamish about their actions, right? And this happens across a few other things that I could point to as examples of like terrorist protagonists, where normally it's like a mistake. It was a confusion or it was a setup, right? And like in art, I think it would be more interesting to try to do what we just went through with this, right? Where we're like, oh, actually, this group is kind of crazy, and like they got up to some crazy stuff immediately after, like some culty stuff. And like feeling through that as a person who believes in collective movement, as a person who believes in collective action and the personal action that goes along with that stuff, right? I want things to make me feel squeamish about being a hero. And this is a beautiful example of that, I think. Really cool and messed up. And I like it.
Yeah, it's dense and complicated, I think is the best way I'd put it. Like, you know, it's I don't feel like I can give like a raving endorsement of this film, right? Like it's a film that does really well at showcasing a very specific period in time. Like I said before, again, just the point in time where this came out, right? Like, again, 6 months before the Osama Sanso incident, 9 months before the Lodi airport massacre, right? Like, you can tell that maybe if not directly, this definitely played a part in the tapestry that led to those key pivotal moments in revolutionary Japanese leftism.
Yeah, we didn't get too much into all the splinter factions in Palestine too, and that's something I wish the film had addressed. You know, because you don't just have the you don't just have the PLFP, you also have the PLDP. Like there's the
PLO,
the Fateh, like
yeah.
There's so much going on there, and I think the reason I want to pause on that for a moment is, like, you know, I hate when people call the situation in Palestine complex for the sake of, you know, inaction towards stopping Israel. But it is complex in that different Palestinians want different things and they want to achieve those different ends by different means, right? And I get why this film didn't do that, but I also think it's a weakness of this film for not seeking to better educate its own presumably Japanese subjects about some of the complexity in Palestine.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how much of that is just for the sake of keeping things brief, or just for the sake of, like, because again, a lot, like Keigen said, like, this is 2 monologues that are surrounded by footage and interviews, right? So I think, like, I don't know, it does, the stance it takes on not just the PFLP, but like Palestinian liberation does feel not quite like an afterthought, but it feels like they are talking about it kind of in the same way that they were talking about, like, the Vietnamese struggle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is a cursory event in the larger global struggle against not only capitalism, but imperialism and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it also feels like the kind of thing that leftists, we do, where it's just like, I already know that. Like, and like, it's an audience thing too, right? Like, they're probably mostly talking to people who already know that. Like,
yeah,
we're on to motivation. We're on to
lionization, galvanization,
like, continuing to going. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not like, I don't need the pamphlet that explains the problem or the complexities as much as, like, that's more useful. And that's, I mean, again, that kind of goes back to stuff that we talked about before, where it's like, how useful is this really? And it's like, well, it's propaganda, so how useful is it really? Like,
yeah. So we'll be doing our own documentary. Just give it some time. You know, we'll be co-producing our own propaganda film.
Gun, bullet.
Yeah. There will be, like, a long interview with some of the foremost Twitter leftists, and we can talk about you know, all the splintering. And, you know, if I were to describe the history of like leftism in Japan in the 20th century, you know, to quote Charles Barkley, I got 2 words: leftism and infighting.
Let's go. That's supposed to be the second, whatever. Anyway, actually, I did text my DSA friend for that meme that I was mentioning earlier, but they didn't know about it either.
Damn.
So.
Well, this was a crazy movie. We've been watching so much and reading so much superhero stuff. I needed to switch it up. So, yeah, this is a very different flavor. Thanks for joining me on
Keigen
this
still
ride.
managed to do a Daredevil impression. Like, I just
listen,
don't know how you managed to connect us to Daredevil.
If I have to talk about Daredevil, like, for 4 hours every week, I have to. It's on the mind. Okay, it's on the mind.
like Americans discovering leftism. This is just like Daredevil, or like explaining Japanese leftism, explaining Japanese leftism to Americans. So imagine Daredevil.
Perfect. You got it in one.
All right, is this a main or is this a bonus, Lan?
It's a main.
This is a main episode.
So you got
all right. Well, cool. Do you want me to close this out? I can do it.
Don't do terrorism.
Yeah, we do not endorse any of the actions depicted.
If it's psychological terrorism,
Yeah, Lan's a fan of that nasty little troll he is.
Yeah, psychological terrorism is what Keigen does to me every time. Every time I'm trying to, live my life peacefully, he always shows me some in the group chat that I'm just so mentally attacked by.
No, it's unfortunate.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, follow the show on Bluesky. It's MGA Pod. Get in the Discord with us so you can be visually assaulted with terrible stuff by Keigen. Mm-hmm. And follow all of us on Bluesky and the socials. It's all in the episode description.
Also, join our Patreon, patreon.com/midnightgrappleranimals, patreon.com/midnightgrappleranimals. So pornography.
Yeah, that's a series we're doing right now. We're watching the new Daredevil. We're having a good time. Get on the Patreon and join us. But before we get out of here, we have to grab some bags. I'm just hanging out with my boys, grabbing their bags. And want to know how they taste. That's right. It's the Taste Makers Grab Bag, wherein we recommend some stuff we liked real quick that you might like. Lan, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So in between watching Daredevil and watching Daredevil, I've somehow managed to find time to do things that aren't watching Daredevil. So the first thing that I'm going to recommend is a show that came out on Hulu or just Disney Plus for people that aren't in the US. It's called Deli Boys. It stars Asif Ali and Saga Sheikh, who you might know as the criminally underused brown guys from a bunch of Marvel's recent TV hits. Saga Sheikh played the brother in Miss Marvel. Asif Ali played, I think, one of the co-workers in WandaVision. I don't know if he came back for the Agatha show. I didn't watch that. Yeah, they're both great in this. It's like a really fun crime drama comedy. I'm only like a few episodes in, but again, they're just so charismatic. They're so funny. So yeah, Deli Boys. I'd recommend that. I'm gonna recommend a duology of video games. First is Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, and then its sequel, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank. One is like an action adventure game, and then the other is like a roguelike action adventure game. They're both really fun. And yeah, that's it. I'd recommend them. I think they go on sale pretty often. They're pretty quick too. So yeah.
All right, I guess it's my turn.
Get it, Keigen.
I have one graphic novel. It's called Now Let Me Fly. It was published by First Second. When was it? Early 2023, which is crazy because I knew about it when it dropped, but I didn't get it. And I remember when it came out, I mentioned it to my comic shop guy because it's written by Ronald Wimberly. And I was like, hey, you get the new Wimberly book. And he's like, what are you talking about? There's not a new Wimberly book. And I'm like, yeah, he just wrote it. He's like, what? What the hell? And I think this book flew under the radar for people, maybe. Maybe it was also because it was a January release. So, people just don't pay attention to books in January. But written by Ronald Wimberly, drawn by Brom Revel. Really cool book. It's about the first African-American fighter pilot named Eugene Bullard. He flew a fighter plane in World War I for France. And this is like a very, very brief life story. Kind of starts with him in the Jim Crow South and follows him to Paris and then through the war. Really cool. Really looks great. Very simple colors and everything. It's just cool. It's a cool book that I finally got around to because I've been going through all the Wimberly stuff on my shelf because there's not that much. It's really easy to get a hold of all of his stuff and read it all. And and he's just one of my favorites anyway. So, but Now Let Me Fly again. I think a lot of people didn't really even know that exists, and that's one of his things. I also think like I love Prince of Cats. I love in KGMR the stuff that he does on his own. But I do think writing for somebody made him make something that's a little more accessible, because like it's not there's no it's just very straightforward. It's like he wrote this thing for somebody to draw, and they drew it in the simplest way. And it's cool, very, again, accessible and just a cool story. The other one, I finally watched A Different Man last night, and I don't know, I had really high expectations of it, but Sebastian Stan is like an insane actor. I think this last year, this guy, he's incredible in this, and I think it's a movie that is about the performances. Adam Pearson is also like insanely good in it, as the energy changes completely at a certain point in the movie, and it's crazy. That movie deserves a lot more love, and I'm happy I finally got around to it. So A Different Man, yeah, that's mine. Those are mine.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I have two movies. One is called The Taste of Things. This is a French film from 2023, directed by Tran Anh Hung. It's set in late 19th century France, and it's mostly about cooking food for the women in your life. Lot of good close-ups on food, but just great cinematography in general. That's The Taste of Things. And then my other recommendation is Love on a Leash. This is a...
Oh, are you real? Are you for real right now?
I'm so real. Why?
Wow. Okay. No, go on. I want to hear your pitch. Go ahead.
This is a 2011 film. It's an American film by a Chinese expat named Fen Tian, and it frequently makes so bad it's good lists. But I would rather assert that this is outsider art, and I find this to be outsider art at its finest. I think this is a genius movie. It's certainly unconventional, but it's legit really good. And yeah, you're gonna laugh. It's crazy, but ooh, what a movie. now Lan, what's your reaction to this?
What a movie is the best way to describe it. I'd say, honestly, we can just leave it there. What a movie.
Do you know anything about the director?
I haven't heard much, because I know the movie. Like I've seen bits and pieces of it. Oh man, is this something we're gonna have to cover for the podcast?
We might have to.
Okay. Okay.
I would love to get Keigen's reaction to this movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you want us to cover Love on a Leash, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/MineGraph4Animals, and vote for it. Tell us, please force us to watch this movie.
That's it from me. Thanks for listening, and until next time,
keep on grappling.
Perfect.
But not against the state.
Yes. Keep on grappling in an ideological way.